Good evening and welcome to the 2021 Northern Beaches Young Writers Competition Presentation Night. It's lovely to have you all here. My name is Megan Sadler and I'm going to be the MC for tonight. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners upon the land upon which we stand. I pay respects to my elders, to the elders past and present. While it is disappointing for everyone that we can't have this presentation night live again, we are delighted that so many of you have joined us online. So thank you. Just before we do get started with the presentation night, we're going to try and change the view so that you can see all of the presenters who will be speaking tonight. So can everyone see everyone? See all the judges, and we've got everyone on board. We can all say hello to you. So we're sorry we can't see you in person, but we are thinking about you. Okay. All right, let's get started. I would like to introduce, to start our evening, the Executive Manager of the Northern Beaches Library Service, Melanie Gurney.
Thank you very much, Megan. Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to all our finalists, their teachers, families, and friends, and of course, our esteemed judges. I think we can all agree that it's been a tumultuous year. However, it's proved to also be a productive and a creative one for our talented young writers. Almost 500 entries were received this year across the 6 different age categories from students all across the Northern Beaches Peninsula. This is the 12th year of the completion and competition, and we continue to be surprised and delighted by the really high standard of short stories that we received. The theme for 2021 was Spark, and that's why I've got this sparkly background here. And it has certainly sparked an eclectic mix of thought-provoking, funny, and touching stories. With such a high quality of entries, you should all be incredibly proud of your achievement in becoming finalists. Each year, the stories of the finalists are bound and printed, and you'll be receiving a copy as part of the prize pack. And that's, I don't know if you can see that, but that's what it looks like. The anthology is also published as an ebook, which will be lodged with the State Library of New South Wales, and you'll also be able to download and read a copy from the library's website, as it will become part of our permanent collection. Soon you will meet our panel of professional writers who kindly undertook the difficult task of judging the competition, and our grateful and sincere thanks to all of them. There's no doubt that this literary event is a real highlight of the year for my library team, and I would like to thank them for their dedication, flexibility, and agility, as you can see with us bringing this evening to you online, in adapting this program in these challenging times. And we will get together in person when we can come out of this lockdown. So I hope you enjoy the presentation in the meantime tonight. Thank you. Over to you, Megan.
Thank you, Melanie. It is now my pleasure to introduce the Mayor of the Northern Beaches, Michael Regan.
Thanks, Megan, and thanks, everyone. Can I start by acknowledging the traditional Aboriginal owners of the land and pay my respects to elders past and present? And can I express too my gratitude that we share this land today, and my sorrow for the cost of that sharing. I hope that in the spirit of reconciliation, we can move forward to a place of justice and healing and partnership, and indeed walk gently on this land. Now, Young Writers Presentation 2021, another lockdown. Seriously, what is going on in this world? But could I say good evening to everyone, and welcome to this fantastic event. We'll do our best to make it as fantastic as we possibly can, even though we all zoomed out. But we did, as Melanie said, we did hope to see you all in person, but I am delighted that we can use technology, and we can get multiple friends and family online as a bonus. So we look at the positives, and that's one of them, that we can have multiple people come and join us online. So I hope we got plenty of family and friends joining this presentation tonight. Now, also, as Mel said, normally you'd be receiving a prize from myself on stage. So lucky you don't get to see me in person, and this dodgy haircut that we've all got now, thanks to COVID and hairdressers not having jobs. Big shout out to our hairdressers. But the prizes will be delivered to you as part of our Library to You service. So another fabulous service that the council has created. So thank you, staff, for that. It's genius. The library service will also be hosting a morning tea for finalists and the judges to meet when restrictions allow, just as we did, I think, was it this year or last year we did that? It's always blurs into one these days, but it was a fabulous opportunity. Yeah, last year. Yeah, it was really, really positive up there at Manly Town Hall. Now, firstly, congratulations to all the remarkable Northern Beaches students. Your stories or whose stories rather, have been selected for tonight's finalists. Huge effort. I think there's over 500 entries or something like that. That's huge. There was obviously the very humorous to the joyful, and I'm only just getting through them. So I'm going to actually refer to my notes because I have only just started going through them. Thank you to the staff who delivered me my copy yesterday. Much appreciated. But the poignant, your stories are sparkling with imagination and take us on many journeys across time and space. And that has been a common thing in those last few years. It's just been an amazing pleasure and a privilege to be part of this amazing emerging pool of talented young writers out of the Northern Beaches. And the calibre of your stories is just is truly outstanding. So thank you and well done on becoming finalists. It is an absolute real testament and dedication and passion of not only the students, but also we must say thank you to the teachers, to the parents, and to a library staff who inspire this love of literacy in our young people. And long may it live, because we need to have books and artists and those creative thinkers in our world. The competition would also, and this is really important, would also not be possible without our generous panel of judges who gave up their time to undertake the very difficult task of judging this year's competition. Not just getting to the finalists, but judging it and reading every single entry. So that is a huge, huge deal. So we're going to hear from all of them tonight, but a big personal, sincere thank you to Yvette, Nathan, Belinda, and Wendy, and Will, and of course Jane. So hats off, thank you. You guys are amazing, and I can't sincerely thank you enough, and look forward to being able to see you face to face and saying that. Many thanks again to our Northern Beaches staff. You guys are extraordinary in what you get to, in what you do for our community. You're a great team. It's a pleasure being a small part of it, and I just hope that I can contribute more positively going forward. So well done to all of you as well. And the success of this competition and bringing out the very best in our young writers is just awesome. So it's a great team effort. So thank you, judges, thank you, staff, and indeed thank you to those teachers and parents for encouraging it. And thank you, everyone, for having me here tonight. Good luck with it all, and congratulations again, finalists.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This year, our judging panel, as Mr. Mayor mentioned, are all industry professionals who are passionate advocates for literacy, particularly in fostering the talents of young writers. So to give you a bit of a background of what will happen next is that each of the judges will spend a few minutes talking about each of the finalist entries before announcing their results. There will be 2 highly commended awards, which are of equal weight, a runner-up and a winner in each category, and they'll be announced in that order. So let's get started. First tonight, it is an honour to welcome back Yvette Poshoglian, sorry Yvette, who is the judge of the grades K to 2 category. Yvette is a best-selling author of over 40 books for children, including the popular Ella and Olivia series. She has previously run the New South Wales Premier's Reading Challenge and works with both students and teachers in areas of creative writing, storytelling, and literacy. Please welcome Yvette.
Thanks so much, Megan. It is so great to be here. Hi, everybody. I am joining you tonight from Gadigal land across the bridge. So firstly, I just want to say I hope you don't hold that against me, but I got stuck in lockdown on this side of the bridge in Coogee. It's equally beautiful, but the beaches aren't as good as the Northern Beaches. So shout out to the Northern Beaches and shout out to you guys. This has kept me going. First off, I want to say I was a little bit worried. I'm judging the kindergarten to year 2 category, and I think we got a lot of competition here, guys. The other writers and I were talking before this session about how we're all going with our deadlines, and you guys are coming up behind us hot on our heels. So I decided not to worry. I decided to embrace the spark of creativity that you guys are all giving us. And I want to congratulate you and welcome you to our community, because being a published author is the coolest thing. And I know that it's something that all of you who've participated in this competition will be absolutely thrilled when you get your names announced. If you're a winner, if you're a runner-up, if you're a part of this, you're on the right path, because I know that's something that we all feel equally, and we absolutely love being a part of this community. So to all the writers out there, I want to say welcome and good on you. And I'm also just a teeny bit worried because some of these entries were brilliant. So I had a very hard decision. The ideas from the theme of Spark covered lots of different ideas and themes, and there were just so many left of field entries, so it made my job a real pleasure. So I want to thank all of you for getting those entries in, and also a little special shout out to those people that illustrated their entries, because it did bring something a little bit extra. So I really enjoyed those stories too. But it's actually a very fine art. It's a very hard art to write a story in 300 to 400 words. That's something that I struggle with, okay? I haven't written a picture book. That's a picture book right there. So I think you all have mad skills to get a story in that little piece of writing. And that's a real skill. So I congratulate you all, because not only did you start the story, you got through the story, you finished it, and you entered it into the competition. And I would say almost all of us tonight here would have entered a competition maybe when we were growing up. So congratulations to our runners-up tonight. And I'm going to start, we've got 2 runners-up and they're in no particular order. So I'm going to start with Ashley Smith. Congratulations. Your entry, Sophia's Space Mission. I did love this story. It was an illustrated story, and that was a great compliment to the writing, but it was the writing that really captured my heart. Now, your story was actually about a little baby alien who wears nappies called Spark, and he was gorgeous. But what I really liked about the story is you had a very strong use of language. You had a real story arc. That's the storyline that happens in a very short period of time. We met your alien. We met the alien on Sophia's mission. She went on a mission, and then she returned to Earth having had an incredible experience. So I think that even though you did illustrate it, it was your story that was very strong. And I want you to really keep trying with your writing, because that is a wonderful result. So keep going. Congratulations. I want to also congratulate the next runner-up, which is Leela Loughran. Congratulations for your story, Adventures of Coral. Now, Adventures of Coral had an aquatic theme. I really loved that. And it was set in an underwater school. And the spark in this case was a necklace. It was something in the sand. And it led to an adventure for the school friends. It had lots of different elements in it. It had adventure. It had a story of friendship. It had an air of danger. But essentially, I think you described the world really well. And I thought that I wanted to read more about this story. I wanted to read more about the characters, and I wanted to continue on this path and find out what was going to happen next. And that's a really big part of the job of a reader, is to get people turning the page. So my answer to you, Leela, is I want to see the next page. I think you could keep going with this story. Really, really well done. So now we get to our first, that was our highly commended, our 2 highly commended stories. We now come to our runner-up, and our runner-up was Araminta Green for your story, Lucy and the Amazing Musical Phoenix. Now, congratulations, Araminta, because I think this story has some really important elements that help really make a story sing. And what they were was you had beautiful imagery. So you were able to tell me and set the scene with, you know, pictures that you told in words. And that was a very important thing that kind of set you apart from some of the other entries. You were able to take me straight into that world using your imagery. Your use of vocabulary was really strong. You tried some new words. I thought your word usage was excellent, and it really added to the story. I also, with this story, which was an adventure story about a phoenix, I wanted it to keep going. So I want you to keep working on this story. That's my advice to you. I think you can further develop the characters that you've established in this short story. And I want you to really continue working on expanding your vocabulary, because you've already got some great words in there, and they're the tools of our trade. So well done. Congratulations, Araminta. I hope you're over the moon to come runner-up. It was very close. All of the entries were very, very close this year, and I really enjoyed reading all of the entries across this particular category. It was a real pleasure. So finally, we come to the winner, and the winner for their story, Spark of Life, was Byron Clark. So congratulations, Byron. I hope you're celebrating in the right fashion over there at home. I'm just trying to imagine the celebrations. Do a little dance if you're listening. Mum and Dad, do a little dance, because this was a great one. Spark of Life was a really different story. It was quite unusual, and it stood out to me, this story. And it was about a spark of lightning that triggers a bushfire. Now, bushfire stories can be very sad and emotional, and you know, we're starting to read lots of stories now about the environment and climate change, but you really pulled me in because you had a family of animals that were set in the middle of this bushfire. So I want to commend you on the imagery and your use of language. I just want to explain, actually read out one of my favourite phrases, which was a wonderful, wonderful metaphor. Simile, come on, English teacher hat. The grass and the trees were as dry as a stale biscuit. That was one of your opening lines. I loved that. That pulled me right in. So I want to say, this story had heart, it had emotion, it had depth, and it actually had a wonderful storyline that pulled the reader through. And yes, there was a resolution at the end. You came to a really good resolution, but I think your use of the idea of spark, the spark of lightning that triggered the bushfire, plunged the family into a crisis and the friends into a crisis, and you managed to pull them out of that. And to do that in a very few amount of words is a real art form. So I commend you highly on that, Byron. I want to say congratulations to all of the winners in this age group. And I just want to leave you with an anecdote that I told last year's group in this particular category. My very first story that I ever wrote, I entered in the Stanton Library competition, because that's where my local library was growing up, and I didn't win. I came highly commended. I got a highly commended, but that was what sparked my writing journey. So wherever you came tonight, and if you didn't place, that's okay as well. You just got to keep entering, and you've got to keep getting your stories out there, because at the moment the world needs really good stories, and we all agree on that, because we were talking about that when we got together at the beginning, how important it is to keep telling stories. So congratulations everyone, and thank you again to the Northern Beaches Library for this amazing honour. It's something that I look forward to doing every year, and I hope you're all staying safe in lockdown. And it's great to see my other friends, the other writers here. I know that they're going to share some exciting news with you too now. So congratulations.
Thank you so much, Yvette, for all your wonderful feedback and encouragement for our very youngest young writers in the competition. Thank you. We really appreciate that. And congratulations to all of our grades K to 2 writers. Well done. Okay, moving on to the next category. Judging the grades 3 to 4 category this year is author and playwright Nathan Luff. Nathan is the author of the Nerd series and the middle grade novels Chicken Stew and Bad Grammar. In addition to writing children's books, Nathan writes plays for young audiences and works part-time as a primary school teacher, so he's been busy lately too, specialising in creative writing and performing arts. Please welcome Nathan.
Thanks, Megan. Like Yvette, I am beaming out from Gadigal land. I'm actually just down the road, Yvette. Hi. And I pay my respect to their elders past, present and future. I am also sad, like everyone else has said, to not be there in person, but I also believe in looking at the positives. So while I am wearing a button shirt, I'm also wearing my best tracksuit pants and my Crocs, and I'm very, very comfortable. Also, another positive is I decided to bake cakes for all of the winners. And because I can't give them to you, I get to eat every single one. Another positive. So I think the real winner tonight is me. Well done, me. Now, I'm here to talk to you about some wonderful, wonderful stories. I did want to say that I love this competition. I love not only that it gets kids writing, but also the fact that they publish your stories is an amazing thing. When I was a kid, I wrote my stories and I had to self-publish them with a really bad printer, and you can see they're falling apart now. This was when I was at school, a couple of my books. How amazing that you get a really great quality one that probably won't fall apart in a couple of years. So I think this is a really, really exciting competition. I thought the stories were so good. This is the second time I've judged them, and I found it really difficult. I read them all and I thought, I just can't do this. I don't know how to separate. The stories were all great in different ways. So it was like judging, chalk and cheese. But so in the end, it came down to really technical things and just a general feel. So for any judge might have put it in a different way. So well done to all the stories. I am going to announce 2 highly commended in random order, and then a runner-up and then a winner. So the first highly commended was by an author, Freddie Green, who is from St. Luke's Grammar School. He's in year 4. His story was called Farts and Barks, which is a great title. Scholastic publish a lot of books with titles like this, so I think you should give them a call. I think you might get a contract. So this story is about Sam. Sam has been bullied for a long time now, but then a strange parcel arrives on his doorstep, and it's a robotic dog. And he thinks he could use this to get back at his tormentors. Now, Spark the dog comes into school with Sam on Bring Your Pet to School Day, which I have to admit, Freddie, is the worst idea for anything at school. Like, as a teacher, I can imagine absolute chaos happening. But anyway, he brings this dog in, and of course, he does use it to great effect. The reason I love this story was I loved how it starts with action. It's so well paced. You're there with Sam. A lot of stories, they rush ahead and so many dramatic things are happening one on top of each other. Whereas this is really nicely paced. He deals with each bit of drama before moving on to the next. It's also not too slow or boring. It's got some really great speed to it when it needs it. Also, I love that in the third paragraph, so when you get the backstory about the bullies and things like that, so we're already hooked by the time you start feeding us that information, which is a really sophisticated storytelling technique. So well done. The story was really clear, it's well structured, and I like that the main drama was resolved, although then there was a cliffhanger ending, which made me want more, which is both a good and a bad thing. But you should definitely write the sequel so we can find out who sent the dog in the first place. The second story that I gave highly commended to was by Jennifer DeLowery from Mona Vale Public School in year 4, and her story was called Sparks of Hope. Now, this was a really interesting story about someone who was having to deliver some sort of a presentation to their class, and they're really, really nervous about it. And we spend the whole time in their head as the anxiety is sort of getting the best of them before this person is able to conquer it. So it's a really interesting, unique story. I've not really read anything like this before. It was very relatable. People are always having to get up. I have to do it on a daily basis, get up in front of people, and you get those nerves. And they can get the better of you. So I love that you were so creative with your use of metaphor and simile. For example, the act of trying to suppress this anxiety, she said, was like packing an airplane into a car, which was great. And nervousness was described as being on a train that's thundering by with passing windows in a blur. I also like there were short, impactful sentences as well. It's really great storytelling. And the big thing I loved about this is you didn't know what was real and what was her mind playing tricks on her. And you never knew that. So there's this ambiguity to it that was really beautiful. Like the previous story, the pacing was fantastic. It all took place in this one moment, so it wasn't over ambitious. For a short story, sometimes people like to, I go to the moon and then I went to the beach and got eaten by a shark and then aliens attacked, and it's too much. Whereas this really knew what it wanted to do and just stayed in that moment beautifully. Also, it had a great emotional connection. That's one thing missing from a lot of stories. All this action happens, but we never know how the character feels. This one was all emotion. It was all this one emotion trying to overcome it. So I loved it. Well done. Congratulations. The story that I'm giving runner-up is by Mackenzie Couchman from Bilgola Plateau Public School, and she's in year 3. Her story was called Orange Inferno, and this was one of the stories, like Yvette mentioned, about a bushfire, but done in a really, really great way. So the opening line was this: I see the flames, I hear the crackling, tears roll down my cheeks, the fire has begun. With an opening like that, it really grabs your attention. And one of the reasons it's doing that is because it engages the senses. So we get sight, sound, and feeling all in those first 3 lines. I'm there. I'm transported into that story and I want to know more. So this is the story of a family fleeing from a fire. They're in a car that quickly runs out of petrol, and with no other choice, they're forced outside to continue their journey on foot. So it's high stakes drama, and it keeps upping the stakes, which again for storytelling is what you want. The story has an ambiguous ending, but one that hints at a not so happy fate for this family, which, you know, stories don't have to have happy endings. And this one works because it's got a strong kick to it. So at the end, the orange glow has completely surrounded the family, and it's hard. And so this is her last line. It's hard to believe it all started with a single spark. And with that, it made me think about lots of things. Was this spark man-made? Was it natural? It made me think about how our lives can change so quickly. Even if we look at this pandemic, we think things are going fine. Suddenly you have one case. The next day we've got, you know, a whole bunch. Suddenly we're in lockdown. So things escalate at such a quick rate. And I like that this made me think about all of these things, about how things start. The story was really well paced. I felt like I was there with the family, and I was so worried about our safety. It was great. Great use of short sentences again for effect, and clear, simple prose which conveyed what was happening. Which brings me to the winner. It was really hard. All of these stories, they could have gone in any other way. I thought they were so good. But the winner that I have selected, and I'm going to eat this cupcake in your honor, is Eva Vasilangos. I'm probably pronouncing everyone's name wrong. From Brookvale Public School. She's in year 3. Her story was called Sparklers. Congratulations, Eva. Now, this was the most unique story, I think, of all the ones that I read. So in this story, Harry is at a campsite running around with the other camp kids with lighted sparklers. They're having a great time until Judy calls and he has to take his younger brother up to the bathroom to get ready for bed. Now, the younger brother is on the verge of a tantrum and Harry has to think of a way to circumnavigate it. Now, in itself, it doesn't sound like the biggest drama of a story, yet the way that Eva wrote this story, I was so there the whole time, and it made me think about things. It made me think about my childhood. It made me think about that reckless abandon when you're running with a sparkler at night and how great that was, but also when the mother sort of gets cranky at this kid a number of times. It made me think about how there are those moments in life where that joy is cut short, and why is it cut short? So I was doing a lot of thinking. I felt like I was there. So that's one of the reasons I love this story so much. It was a very simple, easy to follow plot, but overall it's difficult to explain. It was just a feeling with this one. I felt like I was drawn into it. I knew these people. There wasn't a lot of backstory, but that left me wanting a bit more as well. And it also allowed me to fit the pieces together. Sometimes you don't need to give the reader everything. You give them all the pieces, and part of the joy of reading is to put those pieces together and using your own experience to do so. So it's a really beautiful, really different story, but I will congratulate them all, and I will now go and eat my cake. Thank you. Back to you, Megan.
Thank you so much, Nathan, and enjoy that cupcake. And congratulations to our grades 3 to 4 writers. Well done. Just before we go on, I'm just going to try and hold this up, because when Melanie was doing it, it's going to disappear again. I was going to try and show you what the book looks like, because it is a little bit more professional than Nathan's version. So, but I don't think the camera's going to like it. It's melding into the spark background that I've got. But you will all be receiving those tomorrow, so you'll get to look at them yourselves. All right, let's move on. Next tonight to present the awards in the grades 5 to 6 category is author Belinda Murrell. Belinda is a best-selling, internationally published author with a history of writing in her family that spans over 200 years. She has written more than 35 books, including the popular Lulu Bell and Pippa's Island series, and the award-winning Time Slip novels. Please welcome Belinda. We'll just unmute you, Belinda. Oh, Belinda, you're still on mute. There you are.
Is that better?
Yep.
Can you hear me now? Great. All right, start again. Thank you so much, Megan. No, it was absolute joy to judge the Year 5 and Year 6 category of the Young Writers, Northern Beaches Young Writers competition. So I read 14 stories in this category, and it was so hard to choose the winner that have been shortlisted. I was really impressed by the depth of the talent and the broad sweep of themes and subject matter that the students covered. So the stories ranged from humorous, unexpected tales of naughty bushfires to fairy tales with really powerful symbolic imagery, to heist mysteries with unexpected twists, and to dystopian fantasy. So the whole breadth of genre. So it was truly difficult to choose the winners, but of course I had to. So first I'm going to announce one of my highly commended stories. And this was The Spark of Garigal Memories by Marlon Watts from Bilgola Plateau Public School in Year 5. And what a great title. I love the title, The Spark of Garigal Memories, and a really strong link back to the theme of spark. It was a great story. I'm just going to read to you a little bit about it from this story to show you how beautiful it is. The spark took hold on the dry moss, and thin plumes of wispy blue smoke rose in the late afternoon air. He blew gently into his hands, and the little spark grew into a faint orange glow that shone brighter and brighter until it burst into flames. He stared into the fire and saw the same flames that had warmed him 1,000 times, and his people the many thousands more. These same flames had cooked their fish, heated their water, and warmed their hearts and memories. I just love this story. It was so beautiful, wonderful use of the different senses. So it was a beautifully written story about the Aboriginal dreaming and its clash with modern European civilization. I loved its circular narrative structure and its insights into the emotions and disposition of the Garigal people. So it really gave me a really strong sense of empathy for his characters. So yes, that was a really, really lovely story. Loved the vivid imagery and his really beautiful use of language. Okay, so now, again, not in any particular order, but this is my second choice of highly commended. And this story is called Grenade by Sarah Hogg from St. Luke's Grammar School in Year 6. And Sarah is also a very talented writer because she was also highly commended in 2017. So some great consistency there. I'm just going to read you a little bit from Sarah's story, Grenade. Grenade. The word spiraled through my mind as I watched it come closer and closer. I stood still, frozen in shock. It felt like time stood still. The patient kicked me and I shook myself and yelled out, "Grenade!" All of the nurses and most of the men, well, the conscious ones at least, whipped their heads towards me, horrified. The cry echoed around. Their reactions were similar to mine, some too shocked to move, others diving for cover. Look, I really loved this story. It was a very sophisticated story set during World War II in a French hospital, exploring heroism, the horror and pain of war, and its effect on families, children, soldiers, nurses, and ordinary people, told from the point of view of a young woman who has lost everything. I love Sarah's use of the first person point of view to show her characters' emotions, fears, and hopes as a nurse who is trying to help patients in an impossible situation. I love Sarah's use of realistic dialogue, and she had a really appealing protagonist to me, a very ordinary woman in an extraordinary situation. I love this quote from Sarah: "The nurses were the real heroes, selfless, even though it could result in their deaths." And so it was a very emotional story, I thought. The story had a powerful twist of great courage and self-sacrifice, but it was also a celebration of the role of women's heroism in World War II. Very emotional connections there. And she had a very short time frame, so I loved the way her narrative structure was just fantastic. So a really wonderful story there. Congratulations to Sarah, and congratulations also to Marlon on the highly commended stories. Which leads me to the runner-up. And the runner-up I chose was The Gift by Anouk Hayes Black from Curl North Public School in Year 5. And Anouk was also highly commended in 2019, just showing how strong these writers are, these young writers are. And just reading a little bit from her story, The Gift was a very clever story. It's a call to imagination and creativity within you. It's what makes you, you. It drives the way you think and go about the world. It's wonderfully powerful. Babies are born with it, but if they're disconnected from themselves long enough, they often lose it. Years ago, the board banned it in primary and secondary schools across several countries. They say it's not measurable, and that's dangerous. All children must be taught and tested the same way to ensure consistency. It's such a clever and thoughtful story. So it's a dystopian story set in a bleak Australian future where students are brainwashed to destroy their creativity and imagination. The nefarious board tries to control children's thinking from a very young age through relentless testing and competition, like a dark fairy tale. Anouk's story was a very clever satire of Australia's focus on NAPLAN testing, leading to the death of creativity and imagination. And she had a very powerful twist for her resolution. It wasn't a happy resolution, but it was a very powerful one. So I just thought this was just such a clever exploration of, you know, what makes children creative, imaginative, and how important it really is. So congratulations to Anouk. So this brings me to the winner of the Year 5 and Year 6 category of the Northern Beaches Young Writers competition, a very talented young writer. And the winner of this category is Alice Surace, I think that's how you pronounce her name, A Sense of Resilience, which I also thought was a fabulous title. So Alice is from St Luke's Grammar School and she's in Year 6. And just to give you an idea of how talented this young lady is, not only did she win this year's competition, but she was the winner in 2020, the winner in 2019, and she was highly commended in 2018. So I just thought her story was extraordinary. And I'll read to you just a little bit from it. A Sense of Resilience. Eyes can be considered windows to the soul, unless, of course, they remain covered by thick jam jar glasses. I stopped looking at my eye colour when I could no longer clearly visualise my face in the mirror. On last recollection, they were a shade of brown with interspaced green flecks like the image of autumn. It's a beautiful image. Autumn leaves laying dispersed over the surface of a mulched garden bed. Good vision is such an essential sense, so learning to cope as it diminishes can be a painful experience. Over the last few years, my world has slowly transformed into a mist-filled haze where shapes are barely discernible, but gratefully traces of light are still perceived. I absolutely loved this story. It was beautifully written and very emotive, giving the reader an insight into the world of a child who's going blind. It is truly a story where the reader had the opportunity to walk around in someone else's shoes and see the world through their eyes, gaining enormous empathy for their experiences. Alice's use of imagery was powerful and her messages were ultimately very hopeful. I love the themes that Alice explored of resilience, hope, determination, and ultimately joy. So this story really, really stood out for me, and especially the emotional connection that I felt with it. So a huge congratulations to all of the Year 5 and Year 6 writers. I was so impressed with the standard of your writing and the wonderful stories that you wrote. And particularly congratulations to Alice for being the winner of this particular section. So thank you so much and well done.
Oh, hello. Thank you so much, Belinda. And it sure does sound like our authors are going to have some serious competition from the writers in this category in the near future. So well done and keep writing, everyone. Congratulations to all of our grade 5 and 6 writers. Just a quick note before we move on to the next category, there are lots of really lovely comments coming through the chat. If at the bottom of your screen you turn your little chat button on, there's lots of nice comments to our writers there, especially from our teachers. So thank you for joining us tonight and encouraging your writers. Okay, moving on to the next category. Joining us as a judge of the grades 7 to 8 category this year is Wendy Fitzgerald. Wendy is a published children's author and teaches creative writing at Ku-ring-gai Arts Centre in Roseville and at the Sydney Story Factory in Redfern. She is also the past president of the Northern Sydney sub-branch of the Children's Book Council of Australia and is now the sub-branch coordinator of the CBCA New South Wales. So please welcome Wendy. Wendy, you just need to unmute.
Better? Okay, thank you very much, Megan, and thank you very much for asking me to be a judge again at this fabulous competition. The stories from Year 7 and 8 were outstanding, and it was so hard to narrow it down just 4. I've chosen, the 4 stories that I have chosen are very well written, and they explore a range of ideas, from ideas of coping with death, choosing life, accepting differences, finding inner strength, improving the world, magic and hope. All 4 of these stories end with a spark of hope. And that, I think, is what this crazy world needs right now. The first highly commended story I'm going to talk about is Left Behind by Chloe Pillinger, Year 8 at Oxford Falls Grammar School. Well done, Chloe. The subject of death is very hard, even in real life, and it's very hard to write about, especially if it's the unexpected death of someone that you loved. This sensitive story is written in first person. We don't actually find out her name. I'm assuming it's a her. But Chloe gets right inside the mind of this 16-year-old character. This is the beginning. 2 years ago today, he was taken from me. He was my hero, my best friend, and my older brother. A cruel pain wrenches my heart. The hurt is so deep, it is twisted inside of me. The constant ache is a reminder of the gaping hole he left behind. I've always been told not to blame myself, but how can I not? I knew Max was struggling. It's a very strong beginning. We learn that it was New Year's Eve 2 years ago, 2 years before the story, when Max took too many pills. It was supposed to be a happy New Year's Eve. The fireworks celebrating the year we had, like sparks of hope for the future to come. But that's not how it went. The thought of another year was just too much for my brother. So now it's 2 years on, New Year's Eve again. And the character is still struggling with the loss of her brother, still struggling with sadness and anger and guilt. She goes down to the beach to watch the fireworks. I loved her description of the fireworks. A spark in the sky explodes into a colourful array of boisterous and bold fragments. The sky becomes an ocean of light. The fireworks are predictable and chaotic. Fantastic description. But in a sad trance, the character walks into the ocean. Maybe I'm supposed to go too, to see Max again. But when she's struggling with the water underneath, nearly drowning, she sees flashes of her life before her eyes. They say your whole life flashes before your eyes, but they'd be wrong. Only the important parts, the memories that make me smile and laugh. I see Max and Mum and Dad and Buster, our dog. I see Christmas, Easter and Max's 11th birthday. The memories flood from my mind, snapshots of all 16 years of my life, like a slideshow of the times life has been worth living. I'm not dead, I'm being pulled to the surface. A hand is tightly gripping my wrist and saving my life. So there is the spark of hope. She remembers the happy memories that make life worth living, and her life is saved. Well done, Chloe. This was a really, really confronting subject and really well-written story. I think the stories for the high school get a lot deeper and a little bit darker than the primary school. But it's still very well written. So the second highly commended that I chose is a story called Rekindling by Lillian Hamilton, Year 8 at Northern Beaches Secondary College. I found out that Lillian was also a winner of this competition in 2015, highly commended in 2016, and winner in 2017. So here is a future author in the making. The setting of this story is 3 siblings coming together to clean out the family home after their much-loved mum had died. So another theme on death. Everyone copes with death in different ways. That's true and clearly shown in this story. Lillian's writing is an excellent example of show, don't tell. She's jumped straight into the dialogue and the story moves smoothly along, allowing us to meet the characters, John, Mary and Rob, with Sarah on the phone. We meet them in the course of their conversations and through the main character, Rob's inner voice. This is the beginning. I'll be back with the ute in half an hour, all right? John looks over from the pickup truck to where I sit on the porch steps, concern written all over his face. Are you, he begins, the old crease between his eyebrows, the one that I used to tease, that I used to tease him for as a kid deepens. Just go. My voice isn't harsh, but neither is it kind. He gives a short nod and reverses out the driveway. The process seemed painfully long, but eventually he was honking his horn and he drove away. He was gone. So you can see the story just jumped straight into the dialogue, and we're thrown straight into the situation and straight into the setting. The main character, Rob, is sad and finding it really hard to find any joy in life. I liked this paragraph. When Mum died, I stopped knowing anything anymore. Mary scoffed, Sarah frowned, and John just watched. So that was the different ways. She was showing how the different ways that the family coped with the mum dying. Rob's sister, Mary, is trying to reach him, get him out of his funk. She urges him to help with the cleaning, and she tells him the door of his old room needs to be wiped down so they can paint it. While Rob is cleaning the door, he discovers something that's written on it many years before. This room is the property of Robert Brown, aged 10. This sentence sparks happy memories from his past. It's like a little ember in my chest, almost dead, desperate of fresh kindling, and I finally chucked some on it. So he was getting his hope back. In the end, we're left with a spark of hope that Rob will feel better. So in the end, it says, he had another look at the message on the door, not because I'm feeling, because I'm not, but because now I know somewhere in the back of my mind there are still embers in me. I may not know how to make them into a bonfire or even make them into sparks, but I know that it's possible. And for now, that's enough. So this story also ends with a spark of hope at the end. So well done, Lillian Hamilton, the other runner-up, the other highly commended. Now, up to the runner-up. The runner-up in year 7 and 8 is Lexi McCoy, year 8 at Pittwater High School, for her story, The Spark Jacket. I do love a story with magic and hope, and this story has both. Madame Camille is an old tailor, and she was fetching some fabric from the market when she came across a stunning scarlet material. She gasped at its remarkable tones and declared she must have it. When she stroked the fabric, she felt a soft pulsing through her hands and urging. It swirled into perspective for Madame Camille. The fabric was magic, and it was telling her to craft it into something gorgeous. And she did. She spent months on making this beautiful red jacket. Beautiful red jacket that was lined with midnight velvet. When her assistant Marie saw it, she was excited about how much they could get for it if they sold it. But Madame Camille said it could never be sold. She wore the jacket often, and each time she wore it, she came up with the most beautiful and creative designs in the world. She nicknamed her creation the Spark Jacket, as the magic fabric sparked an idea whenever it was needed. So instead of selling it, Madame Curie told her assistant that to promise that she would always look after it, and that when she died, she'd pass it on and give it to somebody worthy for it. So Marie wore it and also sparked lots of creative, brilliant ideas. When she passed on, she gave it to her son Cornelius, and Cornelius also proved brilliant and creative, and also he worried about the world. He worried about natural disasters wreaking havoc on cities, as cruel and ferocious as nature could be. The climate was killing the earth and poverty engulfing the land. Children were growing up, never seeing the natural wonders of the ocean or a forest. Cornelius decided he must put an end to this, so he visited the mayor of his town. He wanted some help, but the mayor said, he dismissed him and said they couldn't spare any money and that he was too young to know what was going on and there was nothing wrong with the climate. This really upset Cornelius, and he came up with this idea that he would write a letter and post it on the board outside the town hall. So he wrote this letter that said, "We need to fight for our future and the children of tomorrow. We need them to see that our climate is in shambles, and if we don't fix it, then no one will be left." So he found a really good friend, an ally called Ali, who read this notice and came to him and agreed that they should work together. So together they organised protests and rallies and wrote books on the climate crisis. And with the help of the Spark Jacket, they thought of some great creative solutions to the world's problems. The mayors of the world finally listened, and the climate began a long road to recovery. Cornelius and Ali fell in love and had a family. And when he passed the magic jacket onto his firstborn, Scarlet. Scarlet tried on the jacket and found herself immersed in great ideas. The next generation of world healers was beginning to emerge, all thanks to the Spark Jacket. I love that Spark Jacket. I want one. That was such a fabulous story. Great characters and terrific ideas and fantastic resolution. Okay, so well done, all those winners. Now we're up to the final winner. And the final winner is A Spark Within by Zarina Nestel in Year 7 at Northern Beaches Secondary College. It's a story about differences and finding your place in the world. I love this story. It was simple and beautifully written. And it starts like this. Blaze's blue scales rippled under the glaring sun as he glided through the mountains. While his vibrant wings struck the cold air with fierce confidence, the famous spark of dragon's fire was nowhere to be found inside his damp soul. Blaze was a blue dragon, one of the last blue dragons ever. And he was so different that the rest of the tribe didn't like him. He was an outsider. He hid in a cave and he felt miserable. The very powerful Galahadi was the guardian of the tribe. He was a very strong dragon, golden black scales, a beautiful girlfriend called Angelina. Next to him, Blaze felt alone and worthless. One day there was a meeting call and Galahadi announced that he had been visited by the great Goldenheim in a dream. Goldenheim was the father of all dragons. His name meant fire of truth. He watched over all the tribes, and his way of contact was through the sacred realm of dragon dreams. There's lots of imagination in this story and lots of really descriptive writing. He told them that there was going to be a new dragon joining the tribe, a new dragon called Dawn. When they met Dawn, Dawn was blue, and Blaze found a soulmate. So at the end, a spark lit deep within, growing into a blazing flame, a flame that reached every corner of his body, Blaze's body, filling his lungs with fire, a dragon's fire. The flame burned courage and confidence into him, transforming him from the hollow shell of a dragon into a magnificent beast fueled by an eternal flame of power, honour and love. Blaze's heart filled with hope. He wasn't alone in this cruel world. There was someone else. They could be different together. For the first time ever, Blaze felt alive, and he knew he wasn't a mistake. He really did belong in this place humans called Earth. I love all these stories. They're all gems of ideas that could be expanded into longer stories. I think you all have talent as writers, and I encourage you all to keep sparking ideas and writing more stories. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wendy. And congratulations to all of our grades 7 to 8 writers tonight. Joining us next tonight is Will Kostakis, who will be presenting the awards for the grades 9 to 10 age category. Will should provide some inspiration for many young writers here tonight. He won the prestigious Sydney Morning Herald's Young Writer of the Year competition when he was in high school. He went on to publish his first novel, Loathing Lola, when he was just 19. On top of winning a number of literary awards, Will's work has been shortlisted for the Children's Book Council of Australia Book of the Year and for the Australian Prime Minister's Literary Awards. Please welcome Will.
Thanks very much, Megan. Hi, everyone. Now, one of the great pleasures of doing what I do is having the opportunity to read stories written by the next generation. Reading the shortlisted entries for years 9 and 10 this year was no different. Now, preparing for tonight, I reread the finalists and I was reminded how vitally important stories are in times like ours. In periods of social distancing and isolation, stories are bridges. They help us feel connected. And the 4 stories we're awarding tonight in this category went a long way to brightening my lockdown. Now, you know how this goes. 2 highly commended recipients, and then a runner-up and a winner. And now the first of the highly commended award recipients is Jeremy Lee from Oxford Falls Grammar School. From the first line, his story, Compound 2HZ, was just so gripping and I was compelled. Now, this is a really dialogue heavy piece, but all that speech drew me into a well-realized, really suspicious corporate world. Jeremy has the makings of a strong screenwriter or playwright, and I was left desperate to know what happens next. Well done, Jeremy. The second highly commended recipient is Ophelia Shapter from NBSC McKellar Girls Campus. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Ophelia's a name we've seen pop up in this competition in the past, and it's wonderful to see young writers continue to put their work out there. Ophelia's story, Calling Out, is such an achievement. This is a story about fathers, the fathers we have and the fathers we become. We trace Jackson's life from the victim of domestic abuse to adulthood, and we see the impact of the former on the latter. But instead of this being a heartbreaking tale, it is one that is imbued with so much hope. It was wonderful to see that cycle of abuse broken when Jackson was older. Calling Out stayed with me long after I finished it. As someone who has a less than pleasant relationship with his father, well done, Ophelia. Your deft touch was appreciated, and it was a really wonderful story. Now, I have 2 awards left to announce, the runner-up and the winner. I just wanted to take a moment to stress, as somebody who won a couple of awards in high school, was runner-up for a few more, and didn't get a mention for a whole lot more. These decisions are tough. There is often not much separating entries. And while it's great to win, what matters most is what you do with that result tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. Take the outcome and let it inspire you to keep writing tomorrow and into the future. And who knows, maybe someday you'll be in a tiny Zoom box announcing the short story competition results. Although I don't want to jinx it and have us Zooming these for the next 20 years. Now, the runner-up, do a little bit of a drum roll. Hope you heard that. The runner-up for 2021 is Caroline Holtz from NBSC McKellar Girls Campus. There was so much confidence in her story, The Hunt for Candy Floss. I caught myself going back to read paragraphs over and over again to the point where I got lost in the story and I just had to go back to the beginning and reread it all the way straight through. I mean, just listen to this opening. The night was rife with the promise of a new year. A barrage of rock music rolled out from the stage as neon spotlights dashed across the crowd, lighting up the expectant eyes and hopeful grins. The night sky was a blank canvas, speckled only with distant stars, a perfect backdrop for a perfect night. Well, it would have been perfect, except Cassia was having a tantrum. It paints such a vivid picture, and there's that sprinkle of humor. It's just so well crafted. I wanted to stay inside that story forever. Congratulations, Caroline, on a spectacular effort. That leaves us with one final award, another anticlimactic drum roll. The winner in this year's 9 and 10 category is Goodnight Alia by Vishakala from the Forest High School. What drew me to Goodnight Alia at first was the voice. The words just leapt from the page. My grandmother's best friend, Alia, was, all things considered, a nice person. She had a kind, round face, akin to an old cat, and the wrinkles that framed her features shone when she grinned. The universe seemed to live in her faded grey-brown eyes, like she knew everything. I could picture who was telling me that story just from the words that Fisher chose to use. And as the story developed, I noticed the beating heart in every detail. And the thing was, I didn't know where the story was going. I thought it was just going to be a heartwarming intergenerational story, but there was so much more. And I could never have predicted that the story would end up ending in the blackened bones of a fire-ravaged house. And when I came to that ending, it felt perfect for what the story was. It was surprising, it was moving, it was engaging, and I was compelled to go back and read it through again. Well done, Visha, for writing such a rich story. And congratulations on being this year's winner. And congratulations to all 4 finalists. You all did remarkably well. And I hope you consider entering again next year, because all of your work betrays just a wealth of talent and promise. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Will, and thank you for your kind words to all of our finalists in this category. Hope it inspires all of you out there to keep writing. And we love the cameo of your cat's shadow in the background while you were talking too. Congratulations to all of our grades 9 to 10 writers. Okay. Oh, we might just turn Will back on for a sec because he's brought his cat in to show us. Will, if you just unmute, we'll be able to see your cat.
She's fighting me. She's fighting me. Oh, okay, I'm gonna let her go because she's angry at me.
All right, moving on to our final category for tonight, and to welcome our judge of the grades year 11 and 12 category, Jane Burke. Jane, who writes under the name C.J. Burke, has published a number of acclaimed books for teenagers and young adults. Her much awarded novel, The Story of Tom Brennan, featured on the New South Wales HSC syllabus until 2018. She has also won the prestigious Ned Kelly Award for crime fiction and her book Big Boy. Could you please join me in welcoming Jane?
Year 11 and 12, greetings from Camaragal land. So I'm not too far away. I'm just down the road in North Sydney. The 4 finalists really stood out, and there's just such a hair's breadth between all the stories. It's so difficult to have to try and, categorise the prizes, but such is life. But they were all really good. And as if you guys don't have enough to do in years 11 and 12, and then enter a creative writing competition as well. But obviously those of you that have made the last 4 are really passionate about your writing, because it really shows. So up to the exciting bit, the 2 highly commended, but in no particular order, but highly commended is awarded to Phoebe O'Brien in year 12 at Stella Maris for her story Washerwoman. Now, the context of Washerwoman really drew me in. Your language was so authentic and real of that time. We had like the boiling water, the diamond necklaces, the lace petticoats, the washerwoman with their ruddy cheeks, blistered knuckles. I couldn't work out what film I was in. Was I watching, I don't know, not that it's a film, but the series, old ABC series of 7 Little Australians. I could see the lacy petticoats and the mop caps, and you really, that authenticity, creating that scene really drew me in. And that's a real skill, to be able to nail that so quickly in a story. Also, what really got me was this sort of thematic thing that you had going. It was like this imagery that had a sort of a circular feel to it, where costumes, colours and things like that were repeated in terms of how they applied to the rich and then how they applied to the washerwomen. And I think this was really powerful, and we kept seeing this colour red, whether it was the red ribbons in the hair, the red wine, and it was just this sort of lovely circular thing that, again, is a great technique, and it's what really creates a good story. So I wanted to read just a few bits and pieces that I really liked. You had this almost poetic, it was like a song or something, like a chorus, that was just so well executed. And it's like you can imagine the washerwoman there. She's just got this repetitive movement she's doing. She's kind of half here, half not here. And we had this thing, it was almost like a poem, like a song. Push to the bottom of the tub and pull. How lonely it is to be the eldest of the washmaids. Push to the bottom of the tub and pull. Where do they go? Push to the bottom of the tub and pull. And I loved that. It was like this chorus that kept happening. I thought it was great. The other thing I absolutely liked, it was just one of my favourite lines ever, was your description of a character. Now, they talk about how less is more in writing, and you gave us, I don't know how many words it was, but it was the most incredible character development in 1, 2, 3, 4, in about 7 words. You said, alert to the shrill clucking of Mrs. Forsyth, whose admonition was the stuff of nightmares. And I think straight away we can see her, we can hear her, we can feel the kind of fear, you know, of the younger girls. That was great. I mean, that's really big character development in a sentence. So congratulations, Phoebe. I thought it was a great story. I really, really enjoyed it. Okay, very, very different story, highly commended, to Angelina Corn, Year 11 at Oxford Falls Grammar School. The difference between existing and living, which was a great title. And Angelina, I really like, this is kind of quite a relevant topical kind of story as, you know, the ageing population grows, and we all know people are being, you know, kept alive, and are we existing or are we living? And you asked this question, and I loved the way your narrator was really analytical and really curious and questioning, but they were also real, like, oh, they were just taking the job because the job was good money and it suited their hours and it was down the road from where they started. So although you had this character, or this narrator who was really observing this old person and trying to understand this concept of aging, of existing and living, they were also just this kind of, you know, normal kid at the same time. And I liked that contrast of it. And I liked, and you introduced the question of existing and living really well. The onset, and I liked it because it also gave us a concept of aging, the actual physical process of actually how a doctor or a nurse may, you know, with sort of language they'd use. The onset was slow, and if you saw him every day, it would be difficult to notice the gradual shift from somebody who was living and somebody who was existing. That's powerful. That's like a big question. Slightly depressing, but a very, very good question. And I loved the curious questioning narrator. And also the way, the sadness of aging, the way you described it, it seemed to be the kind of sadness that just sat on your chest. Again, it had that kind of medical language attached to it, but it was also, it's this very evocative sentence. So I thought that was beautifully done. And it was nicely concluded. It's not always, I couldn't write a short story to save my life, but I would imagine to actually have a beginning, a middle and an end is difficult, and you really pulled that off. And I think you had a really succinct ending with, in the manner that both living and existing are simply relative to what we experience in our lifetimes. And I think that ultimate question that the narrator gives us at the end, I think was, it was a really, really nice ending. It was open-ended, got us thinking, but it tied everything up. And that's part of the technique, is to tie everything up. And that's difficult, to tie up all the loose ends that you introduce into a story. But you did that really well, Angelina. So congratulations. It was a really tight story. Okay, so the runner-up for the flamboyant and the forgotten is Ali Simpson, Year 12 from Northern Beaches Secondary College, McKellar Girls Campus, Year 12. I think I've got that right. Ali. The minute I saw that title, I thought, this is going to be a story about siblings. I just knew it, the flamboyant and the forgotten. So it was a fabulous title, and it was a beautiful story. What I loved about this story was how evocative, just the scenes, the description of the simple things in life that was going on, that we all get as humans. I remember, this is the first sentence. I remembered as a child the thick balm that my mother scooped from a large tub and slathered across my back. Cool cream on burnt skin. Don't we all know that? You know, summer, our mother, and I think that's what creates empathy for a reader. That's what really makes, I think, takes a reader into a deeper sort of level in the way that they relate to a story. And you did that a lot. And that also had a brilliant, you took us back to that particular image at the end too, which I'll get to. All your description was really good. And you know what? It wasn't overwritten. It was tight. And like I said before, less is more. The more you can say in as few words as possible, the more powerful the description is. Things like bare feet across bitumen. That's just a great image. Wire fences around pale sage grass. Starved cows that walked sleepily from field to field. I mean, I loved that. I was in the car trip with the family, looking out the window. I could see all of that. And I liked the way that you set up the relationship between the mother and the flamboyant, you know, dare I say, perhaps the favoured child. You say to us, Mama would laugh and wrap Aria up in her embrace, joking that she was so lucky the whole world would fit inside of her arms. And that was beautiful because, again, we went back to that again when we see that Aria dies. And suddenly the forgotten child is the only child, the one left with that responsibility of, is it going to be enough? How does she feel? How did she feel those shoes? And so we hear again, she was thinking about Aria, about the whole world with her arms. And again, you were able to finish this story. And that's, like I said, it's hard to have a beginning, middle, end, but where she's back home from the funeral and suddenly the narrator, who is the forgotten sibling, is there lathering the cream onto Mum's sunburn. And I just thought that was just such a beautiful ending. I think that was such a great story. I think we could really keep going with that. I loved it. So the winner is Emily Pearce, Year 11, Oxford Falls Grammar with Boy. And dare I say, boy, Emily, you had me in the very first line. It was gradual, an aching truth that had to brew in the darkness for quite some time before catching light. You had such beautiful, powerful, but also simple, succinct imagery in this. Your imagery was big, but you knew when to stop, you knew when to pull away. And that's self-discipline, which you really need to have as a writer. You need to know when enough is enough. And you really showed this in your story. I loved that first paragraph. I was so curious because you did this thing where every word had a little detail attached to it. And again, I think those little details are the things that really stay in a reader's mind. Short sentences, where that we have asked, hang on, we have, where's the boy? Sorry, I'm just looking for, the boy with the chocolate curls. Gorgeous. He's not just a boy with curls, he's a boy with chocolate curls. That little descriptive word chocolate just stays there. And we have the blue-eyed boy. This was such a mystical story, Emily. I didn't know whether I was in Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings, but I felt like I was in New Zealand somewhere, you know. I loved it. I just thought it was beautifully done. Short sentences, you worked really, really hard with them. What you did is you used punctuation to your advantage. Punctuation is part of writing, you know, long sentences if we're creating chaos, say those short sentences, if there could be tension or something. And you had these beautiful short sentences with this lovely repetition of words. This is the kind of mystical feeling of it. Our story begins in a forgotten town somewhere north of the Grey Lake, a mile's hike from the city of men, a journey past the woodland graves, a boat ride along the winding rivers of Dale. I mean, the way we travelled with you, it was beautifully done, beautifully done. It really had that mystical kind of song-like quality to it. I was wondering, I don't know whether you know, there's a book called The Bone People by Kerry Hume, which is a New Zealand book, which I think it may have won the Booker or something. I can't remember, but it won a big award. It's probably in the 90s, I think. But there were parts of that reminded me, this fear of this blue-eyed boy. Who is this child? What happens? You know, is there like a curse attached to him? Yeah, I thought it was great. So you might want to read that book because it did remind me of it. So definitely, I mean, you've got such a talent, Emily. Just keep writing. Keep entering competitions. I was published through entering a competition with the Australian Society of Authors. So, you know, keep going. You've certainly got a great talent. So congratulations to all of you. They all had such unique and interesting and skillful things in all the stories. And I really, really enjoyed reading them. So congratulations. Hang in there for lockdown and year 11 and 12 and all of that. And best wishes. And thank you for letting me read them, because I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jane, and congratulations to all of our grades 11 and 12 writers. Wow, it looks like we'll be booking some of those authors in the near future for a library talk. That brings to a conclusion this evening's presentation. Thank you to Melanie, our Mayor, Michael Regan, and to all of our judges. Thank you so much for being a part of this evening. And also a big thank you to all of you at home who've joined us this evening to help celebrate these remarkable young writers. A reminder that all of your prize packs will be delivered tomorrow to your doorstep by the Library to You service, so keep a lookout for those. And a recording of this presentation with all of its mistakes will be uploaded onto our website, hopefully by tomorrow afternoon as well. And we will absolutely try and get you all together for a wonderful morning tea when restrictions allow, and we'll invite all of our finalists and our judges to that as well. And so you'll get to meet each other. Finally, congratulations once more to our next generation of storytellers, the talented finalists of our 2021 Northern Beaches Young Writers Competition. Thank you so much for sharing your stories with us and providing a wonderful escape from this lockdown. Well done, and congratulations again to all of you. Stay safe, everyone, and good night.